Sunday, NASCAR Victory Lane takes center stage on speed. Pop the cork and break out the confetti as John, Jimmy, and Kenny discuss the highlights of today's race from Michigan. Plus, today's winners climb out of his car and onto the set for a post-race interview. NASCAR Victory Lane, Sunday, 8 Eastern on Speed. And the number 3 CompuWare Corvettes in 10th overall, a little bit further down the class than they'd like. The number 63 entry, and we believe Ron Fellows has just stepped out of the car. There's Danny Binks checking everything over, saying it's clear, you're on your way.
Of course, still working on the back of that car from early yesterday when Johnny O'Connell had a little misfortune with the barrier there, and they just keep putting more tape on it, more tape on it. Hanging tough.
Yeah, that left rear corner, you can see there's a little bit of damage at the back, and they've got that real heavy vinyl super sticky wrap on it. I noticed that in front of the wheel arch too. Now there's a little bit of damage there that's starting to come through, and that's of the concern. Certainly the car sits in the 10th overall spot, and that would be 6th in GT1 right now, and just 3 laps at this stage behind that number 72 Luke Alfond Adventures car, the C5R. So these guys just plugging away at it, and they certainly know that anything can unfold.
Of course, that is Johnny O back behind the wheel, relieving my old teammate Ron Fellows.
That's the number 39 Chamberlain Synergy entry. That's the number 19. That's the team car, which actually runs in the P1 division with Gareth Evans, Peter Owen, and Bob Barrage. That's a Lola BO 610 AER. And that runs in the P1 category. They're, I believe, the only team here that's running 2 different classes. And here's the number 87 again, the Scuderia Ecos Ferrari of Kirkcaldy, Mullen, and Niarchos. And that car's still struggling there in the pit garage.
Yeah, they're back there working on that wheel hub, or that mono lug that is not coming off that hub. Long pit stop for these guys. This could be a really big problem. Trying to get that off. They might have to chisel it off. I've seen that done before. It does a lot of damage, and they might have to replace the whole hub. But once the one's locked on like that, you're pretty much at the mercy. It's not coming off.
Well, obviously, they're just going to have to continue to plug away at it right now as we're watching some of the action. There is that LNT Team Panos, and behind it, the Intersport entry. And we've been talking a little bit about what's unfolding with the Corvettes, the great battle the 64 is involved in, and the comeback after O'Connell's moment for the number 63. Well, this year marks Corvette's 5th in international road racing, and Lee Diffie has the story of its first appearance here at Le Mans.
Corvette first came to Le Mans in 1960 and tasted success when John Fitch, the tall gentleman, and Bob Grossman won the GT class driving for Briggs Cunningham. Wearing the blue and white colours that traditionally identified American entries in international racing, there were 3 Cunningham Corvettes and 3 pairs of racers: Cunningham and Bill Kimberley, Dick Thompson and Fred Windridge, and Fitch and Grossman. In the waning hours of the race, the team's lone remaining car was the Fitch and Grossman Corvette, but its engine was suffering overheating problems and had lost its coolant. Regulations prohibited the team from refilling the radiator. Yankee ingenuity triumphed, however, when the crew packed the engine with ice from the team's catering tent. Driving at reduced speed, the ice-cooled small block V8 powered Fitch and Grossman to an 8th place finish overall. The best by a Corvette until the arrival of Corvette Racing C5Rs some 40 years later.
And their record, certainly in this millennium, has been pretty spectacular. Obviously, in the year 2000, a 3rd and 4th, then 2 consecutive wins, and in 2003, a 2nd and 3rd behind the ProDrive Ferrari, and then sweeps again in 04 and 05. And obviously, the 04-05 sweeps in the hands of the gentlemen who are battling for that lead right now, Gavin Beretta and Magnussen, and they are going for a 3rd straight. One problem is a very fast Aston Martin that just is refusing to go quietly. There's a look at that number 30 entry we saw, a rather spectacular moment from earlier, Dorsey.
That is one tough little car, I got to tell you. It went bounding through the chicane, got airborne, turned in, like you say, a shovel, and and somehow still manages to run around out there.
This is the Team Taizan Advan car that we've talked a little bit about in the GT2 category, the Porsche. Philip Collin, Yamaji Nishizawa, and Shinji Yamaji driving this one.
Glad you took that.
Boy, just again, look at all the debris on the track out there. You watch them working through the chicane under the Dunlop Bridge, and I mean, not only is it tire rubber, Dorsey, but there's an awful lot of that very sharp flint-like gravel that they use here for some reason I don't understand why you use something that sharp in a gravel trap.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the gravel we have back home. This, when you go out there and you grab a handful of that, it's very flint-like, and it's very sharp.
Here's the moment we were talking about.
Here's
Francois
the ride.
Pachard.
Gets it wrong coming into the chicane, and it just keeps getting worse. So you talk about compounding the problem. Now we're airborne. Now we're really airborne. Now we're a shovel. And that's huge amount of stress on the underbody of that car. Much as, and look, it didn't even knock the nose off. I think the fasteners must be just unbelievable.
Very sturdy indeed. Here's the number 19 Chamberlain Synergy car, a problem once again. They were just in, they're back in again. And when we come back, we are going to have a visit with Ron Fellows, driver of the number 63 CompuWare Corvette. Here are your 4 class leaders at Le Mans. Welcome back to Speed's live coverage of the 74th running of the Michelin 24 Hours of Le Mans. You are watching a long pit stop for the Intersport team. That is Clint Field behind the wheel. And you know, with the advent of technology, it's not always a driver's best friend. You can learn a lot from it, but you know, telemetry, data, and onboard cameras, and look at the Intersport's opinion of the onboard camera, at least from the driver's perspective.
Yeah, I didn't hit him and push him off the road. What are you talking about? Oh.
Didn't get near him. Oh, I did. Lie detector. All right, we're very happy to have with us down in the pits on our shot cam down there, Ron Fellows, who just got out recently of the number 63 CompuWare Corvette. And Ron, from fairly early in the going here, you guys have been in chase mode, and it looks like you guys have just been putting your heads down and doing whatever you can. You've worked yourself up to 10th overall right now. First of all, considering the damage and the fact that we're past halfway, how's the car going?
Yeah, it's handling fine. We're a little bit oversteer getting into the corners, but it's still very drivable. Be a lot worse if we were loose in and pushy in the center, but it's just the entry part you got to be a little bit careful with, and then it's fine. It's kind of been like that since I got in it, and no, we're good. Corvettes are running well. We got a little catching up to do. We've had a few more problems with the 63. Just you know, we have been unlucky pretty much all season, and it seems to be carrying on here in France. I thought we could lose it in North America, but apparently not.
What other problems have you had of note?
Clutch problem. Max got a 3-minute stop and go for some bogus deal. Not sure what it was, but he got the park and wait. Cost a bunch of time. Yeah, and then Johnny had his problem in the Porsche curves. So anyway, we're hanging in there.
Well, at least you've been behaving so far.
So far.
Got to ask you, we're seeing a lot of the shots that we have. Certainly one that's real prevalent right now is up into the Dunlop Bridge area. A tremendous amount of junk off the line on the track, including those flint-like, really hard pieces of gravel that they seem to like here for some reason. How bad is that being, especially if you come on traffic, I suppose?
Well, yeah, the problem is the way the track kind of falls away on the approach. You don't see it till you hit it, and then it's too late. So you just kind of drive your way through it. And I've had a couple of incidents now where that arrowhead-shaped stone cut a tire on Thursday night, just similar to what I had happen here 2 years ago on the way to the first chicane, and managed to catch it, primarily because there's a little more room to wobble back and forth with a blown left rear. And I kept the stone, and I have it in my room. I'm going to keep it. And it looks like an arrowhead.
Well, while you guys are playing catch-up mode, it's been cool through the night, so it hadn't been too bad. But, you know, it's the sun's out now. Is that an issue?
Well, you know, we've got a pretty decent cockpit in our Corvette C6R. So the hot air is it's more of a, you don't really notice it until you get out of the car, because you're breathing relatively cool air from our air conditioner, and there's some decent air coming in, but it's very hot around your legs, and you lose a lot of water, and you notice it when you go to get out of the car more so than when you're driving.
Well, one of the things that the ACO is looking at, it appears, is mandatory air conditioning units in some of the closed cockpit cars. And Ronnie, why don't you hang tight, because we want to get your opinion on this. But a little bit earlier, Dorsey Schrader took a look at the proposed systems relative specifically to the Corvette.
The subject of mandatory air conditioning on all of the cars at Le Mans has really caused a controversy. Although it's not mandated into a rule yet, it might come in the future. The people at Corvette Racing have dealt with this problem for quite a long time, and they address that heat in several different ways. One is to shield the driving compartment from all the heat of the car, the engine, transmission, the exhaust, etc. Try to keep that heat away from where the driver is. Secondly, they air conditioning the helmet of the driver. They bring ambient air in from outside. They run it through an intercooler, which drops the temperature of that air about 30 degrees. Pumping air conditioning right into the helmet of the driver keeps him more fresh. But they've taken it a step further. The seat of the car itself is hollow. They bring the same ambient air, which is hot, run it through a cooler, and they pump it up through the seat. The seat has holes in it from where the driver sits, and that cold air kind of encapsulates his body to keep his core temperature lower. Now that drops the interior temperature of the Corvette some 25 to 30 degrees, but will that be enough for the rule when it comes out? That's yet to be seen.
And Ron, earlier we were talking to Luke Alfano, one of the interviews, and they are running an air conditioning system, and he said over the night they've been seeing temperatures 27 degrees centigrade thereabouts in the car. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. It may be the temperature that's in the hose that's blowing into your helmet. That would make more sense. But nah, it's just trying to extend my career another 10 years or something. It's ridiculous. You know, it's like trying to air condition an acre of land in Phoenix in July. You know, it ain't gonna work.
Well, that's what we said. You know, the ACO would like to see under 38 degrees Celsius in the car. Well, you can park a car out with the windows rolled up and go way over that
in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's come an awful long way between the filters and the quality of the air that we breathe from when we first came here in 2000. I mean, it was very, very difficult. But now it's our guys have just done such a great job. We've got holes in the seat that blow some air in your back. You try to seal off the area around your helmet, around your face area, and that cool air that's coming in is generally 25 or 30 degrees cooler than the air that's inside the car. And that sometimes when it's hot, you think, is this thing working? And you go to turn it off, and it's like instantly like an oven. So I just don't know how you could get the entire cockpit that cool. I mean, the engine's in front. That's the deal, you know, and all that, you know, 427 V8 makes a lot of heat. You know, that if they want to take half the horsepower away, that'll fix the heat problem.
Now, Ronnie, hang tight for a sec. Brian Till, you've got a little bit more on this, don't you?
Well, yeah, you know, the cooling is a big issue. It always is in France. You talk about the air conditioning. The other thing that they don't cool a lot over here is your drinks, but Corvette is taking care of that so that guys like Ron Fellows can be comfortable. They have the only one in pit lane. Yeah, you got it, baby. The ice maker. And Corvette, in addition to taking care of their drivers, they take care of the team. $5,700 spent at Costco on what? You got it. Junk food. What about it, Ron?
Any Ruffles in there?
I tell you what,
they don't miss anything. I think every year we come here, our guys just get better and better organized, and it becomes it's a well-oiled machine. You know, obviously what happens on the racetrack is completely unpredictable, but our guys are extremely well prepared, and just proud to be a part of it.
Hey, Ronnie, you joked about extending your career by 10 years, but I do have to ask you, your drive at Long Beach in the Caddy, obviously, man, you still got it and you still love it. That last couple of corner pass, how sweet was that? I mean, that's got to be what it's all about.
Well, it was good fun, and you know, I certainly learned a lot about street racing in racing the Trans Am Series, and certainly when Dorsey and I were teammates, I said it at Long Beach, and he was just unbelievable on the street circuits. I remember him at Des Moines just waxing everybody, and it took me a while to figure it out, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoy those cars. A bit closer to the Nextel Cup Monte Carlo, where there's the finesse aspect that I really enjoy, and that race I felt bad for Mike McCann, but in retrospect, if I'd have made the move a lap earlier, he'd have passed me again, and I never would have done it. So it really worked out.
It was certainly fun to call it, and it was a lot of fun to watch it. And we certainly hope you're around racing for a long time, because you're a real treat, Ronnie. And thanks for stopping by and visiting with us, and go get yourself some rest.
Hey, thanks. Hey, what happened in the hockey game last night? Edmonton and Carolina. Anybody know?
Edmonton 4-zip.
Sweet.
Yeah, eh?
Sorry, Mr. Carmanos. It's my passport.
Bye, Ron. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and there you see it. 9.5 hours remaining according to the big Rolex here at Le Mans. We're going to show you our top 10 overall. We're going to step away. Please do come right back with us. Welcome back to Le Mans, everybody. Great to have you with us for our live coverage here on Speed, and we're going to show you the class leaders, the leaderboards in each of the 4 divisions that are running here. In P1, it is the Audi number 8. Right now in the hands of Frank Biela, leading the number 17 Pescarolo Judd, and the team number 7 Audi in the hands of Tom Christensen. In P2, it is the number 25 RML, the same type of car. That's the Lola AER, same type of car that we see racing frequently in the States, in the hands of the Intersport squad. They lead over the 27, a great run by the Courage of Miracle Motorsports, and the 24 entry of Terrata Binney and Timpani, the Binney Motorsports entry. We take a look at GT. It is this glorious battle that is continuing to unfold between the 009 Aston Martin and the 64 Corvette, and then a few laps adrift. A bit of a surprise, the number 62 Aston Martin of Nelson Piquet Jr., Garcia, and Brabs. And in GT2, the number 83 Cycle Motorsport entry leads it over the 86 Spiker, which is again a great story in the unfolding, and then the 93 Team Tizen Advan entry, and a great story on that number 83 Cycle entry. That car was not initially even going to run here. It was on the reserve list, but one of the Ferrari, the Acer Brakes Ferrari entry that had been on the invited list, had a huge crash at the Spa 1000. They couldn't get that car fixed, and as a result, Cycle got the invite. It is their 10th time Cycle Motorsports has run here at Le Mans since 1994. There's a look at that 62 Aston Martin, which is in and undergoing a stop right now, 3rd in the class right now. And we talked a little bit about what was going on in the P2 division. It certainly has provided some of the more exciting moments that we've had. One of them, the number 30 Welter Racing Peugeot. Watch this in the hands of Francois Houchard. Just got it all wrong, Dorsey, and went for a wild ride.
You watch this one, bang! And somehow the whole bodywork and everything stayed together. That car's still running.
Then the number 37 Belmondo Courage Ford had a right rear tire explode, and bodywork off, barriers, more bodywork.
And that car's not still running.
No, debris everywhere, and then at the end of it, it had a bit of a fire, and you can see marshals and driver getting out of the way. Then the number 27, the Miracle Motorsports entry from the United States, having a great run. They are 2nd in class, 11th overall. The class leader right now, the number 25 Ray Malik Limited entry, 6th overall. So a superb run by that team, and again, I think a great story for the Miracle Motorsports entry in the hands of Ian James, Lally, and Macaluso. Just the fact that they admitted, we don't have the speed, we're just going to keep running, and they came up with a program with great success. Meanwhile, Andrew Marriott, big problems, it looks like, for the 62.
Yes, indeed, Greg. The car came down the pit lane with smoke billowing from the right front, but it appears the front suspension has collapsed. They're just changing the spring damper unit, new spring damper unit going in right now. So haven't seen the old one come out yet to see what happened to it, but obviously a problem here. They have not put the car back into the garage. They've got Just the 4 people waiting here, and unfortunately our cameras just managed to poke one of the mechanics. He wasn't very pleased about that. I don't blame him really, but you know, it's pretty hectic down here. They're going to have this fixed within maybe a couple of minutes. This is the sort of thing you see a lot in rally WRC type events, changing struts very quickly like this. Seems to be all designed pretty well, so it is a quick fix. So the hood's gone back on the car. They are having a little problem just locating this spring damper unit, but I think they'll have this car running again in 2 or 3 minutes. So it should hang on to its 3rd place, but a bit of drama here for the Team Modena Aston Martin.
Well, Andrew, yeah, the margin that it has right now is about, it was over a lap. Now it's down to about 1:55, obviously, with the stop. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. Certainly, they'll still be right in the hunt. The problem is that 007 Aston Martin, one of the Pro Drive cars, certainly, Dorsey, appears to look at fast times and best times and current fast times, that 62 just doesn't have the speed.
Now, it doesn't have the speed on the racetrack, that's for sure. As we take a good look all the way around the racetrack now, now that the sun's up, looks a lot better. Last night, pretty scary looking out there.
Oh boy, I'll tell you, and there is the number 62 as they continue to work on that car down at pit lane. Brabham behind the wheel, and this is going to be a long one, and they are still working on it right now. So we're going to step away for just a moment here from the Circuit de la Sarthe. We will be right back to the 74th running of the Michelin 24 Hours of Le Mans. Welcome back to the Circuit de la Sarthe for the Michelin 24 Hours of Le Mans. And if you've been a frequent viewer of our coverage, you'll notice that the pit out area and the village, which is what we're showing you right here, has been really drastically redone since last year. And it has been a big change. Well, there is an interesting story that has evolved out of that, because some 62 years earlier, during World War II, Le Mans was actually captured by the U.S. 5th Armored Division on August 8, 1944, following their breakout from the Normandy beaches. When they were doing the excavation here, Dorsey, they discovered something. It was a huge surprise.
Yeah, it's not a robin's egg either. That is an unexploded bomb from World War II. I wondered where I left that.
As a matter of fact, spectators attending the 1949 Le Mans were barred from certain vantage points because of landmines left by the Germans during World War II, but that was a new one. And the irony is that bomb was dropped by a Royal Air Force plane, even though it's a U.S.-made bomb that was launched from an airfield in Britain that is now a racetrack. So, I mean, there's just a real bizarre little synergy going on right there. But boy, what a moment for the crews that were doing the excavating to come across that.
Absolutely. And of course, I read an article where they said they neutralized that bomb, which usually means they blew her up.
So somehow, yeah, but I mean, man, what a moment, and very dangerous indeed. But obviously, there's going to forever probably be those type of scars from those horrible wars early here on the continent. Meanwhile, let's check in. Andrew Marriott, more information on what's going on with the number 62 Aston Martin.
What's going on with the 62 Aston Martin is it's back on the racetrack. They have changed that right front damper. The top of the damper broke off. That's what the problem was. It's still in the hand of Sergio Rinland, who is engineering this car. Antonio Garcia was at the wheel, not David Brabham. And what is the connection between Sergio Rinland, the engineer here, and David Brabham? Well, actually, David Brabham is, of course, part of the famous Brabham family. Sergio Rinland used to be one of their Formula One designers. Let's go to Brian Till.
Andrew, problems for the Spiker. They've been having such a good run. 86 now sits in the garage. They're going to take an opportunity to do pad and rotor change on this car, but that is not what it is. Put it in the garage. Something in the engine compartment. But what I can tell you is that the 85 car, the sister car, which was dropped out of competition earlier and sits in the garage next to it, they're taking parts out of the engine compartment off of the 85 and replacing them in the 86 car. So something back in the back, I can't tell whether it's electronics or what, but it's the one great thing about having a sister car. There's always a parts car to work off of. They had a 5-lap lead over the next car in the GT2 class. This is a long and costly repair here. Hopefully they can get this Spiker back flying, guys.
That really is a shame, Dorsey. I mean, that car had been so good. Obviously the problem for the 85, but that 86 had been just ticking along beautifully and showing some great pace.
Yeah, it looks like the Audi boys have found 8 miles of racetrack, and they found the same place to run with one another. I think that's the other one up ahead of it.
That's the 7 in the hands of Christensen. Up front, Biela, that's the red roll hoops is the clue, is the H car. With Biela, the yellow roll hoops are Christensen.
It's nice to have friends around you when you're just cruising through the countryside at 200 miles an hour.
Especially coming up on traffic. Right now, the current situation, by the way, in the P1 and overall category is the number 8 of Frank Biela we're talking about is leading the number 17 Pescarolo Sport Judd, now in the hands of the very fast Frank Montagny by about 3 laps, and then another 6 laps adrift is Christensen because of all the problems that they experienced. And 4th overall is the first of the GT1 cars, the Aston Martin, a few laps back. But the Biela car really has, anything that's happened has been extremely minor, and it has just been cruising right along.
And even a 6-lap lead, which seems like a lot on an 8-mile circuit, is nothing if you have to replace a gearbox and/or you saw what happened when a tire exploded in the middle of last night and completely just threw the car into the wall. Anything can happen. We have a long way to go. 7 hours, 47 minutes before this is over. You can't even start thinking. If you're a 6-lap leading driver, you can't even start thinking yet about what might.
Well, and you had pointed out that what they had been talking about, the Audi team, Audi Sport Team Yost, that they were going to run fast because of that very reason, is that if something happened, they wanted to have a margin built up.
Yeah, they said that coming into the show, that they didn't think this would go trouble-free. They were going to run as hard as they could and get a cushion to fix whatever might break.
All right, so as we watch Frank Biela work his way around the track, we're going to step away. By the way, at the end of the 14th hour, we now have 12 official abandonments here. The last 2 being the 90 Peterson White Lightning entry and the 40 Racing for Holland Dome. Speed's coverage of the Michelin 24 Hours of Le Mans is presented by Michelin, a better way forward. By the all-new 2007 Lexus ES350, the car that asks, is it possible to engineer desire? And by Progressive Direct. Call 1-800-PROGRESSIVE or visit progressive.com for a free quote. And we are back once again live here at the Michelin 24 Heures du Mans. And we are going to show you right now, as we have about 9 hours and, well, call it 7 or 8 minutes remaining. Here are the leaderboards right now, and as you can see, it is Audi, Pescarolo, and Audi. That is the story in P1 and overall. Then, I think a remarkable story in and of itself already at this early stage of the race, relatively speaking. It is the GT1 battle for the lead in that class, 4th and 5th overall in the hands of the Aston Martin and the Corvette. 6th overall is the leader in the P2 division, the number 25 Ray Malek Limited RML MG Lola AER. Andy Wallace, one of the drivers in that program, doing a stellar job. And you take a look, top 10 overall. You can see the number 63 Corvette there at the bottom. The CompuWare Corvette has worked its way back into the top 10. And if you were here and we talked to Ron Fellows, they're just chasing it, is all they're doing right now. And if you look at 15th overall, you see the number 83 Cycle Porsche 911 in the hands of Nielsen, Young Farnbacher, and Pierre Arret, who, of course, we have watched race in the United States a number of times. They are leading in the GT2 category. And speaking of GT2, the number 86 entry that we show in second is struggling right now. Check in with Brian Till with an update on the number 8 Audi, our overall leader. Brian?
Greg, big drama down here at the Audi camp. Marco Werner just took over from Frank Biela. Werner wants his second 24-hour win, but we fired up the car and pulled away from the stop. He only got to right at the marshal at pit out, stopped, shut the engine down. Now they've pulled him back for another nose. I don't understand this. I don't understand how he could have felt anything on that nose just in leaving here. I don't see anything wrong with it unless it's a decision that the team made, or perhaps maybe the headlights were not working, and that is why the official would not let him on the track. And at any rate, a new nose. We'll see if we can get headlights on this one when this engine fires up, and see if Marco Werner can take this very powerful Audi R10 back on track.
Well, Brian, isn't that a new rule this year? For the first time, the headlights have to be on all 24 hours, so maybe that was it.
That's exactly what I was about to say. All the cars this year have to run, even during the daylight hours, with headlights on. So if he fired the car off and the headlights did not come up like they should have, they would have stopped him right there, and I think that's exactly what happened.
Well, obviously that with 2.5, better part of 3 laps to play with, that was a good call to take care of it right now. And as we are coming up on the end of our coverage here, we'll be joining Radio Le Mans for a little bit of coverage in just a moment. We wanted to check in with our pit reporters and get some of their thoughts here on what they have experienced thus far. Let's get down to Andrew Marriott.
Well, what just happened up there at Audi shows that this is far from over yet with 9 hours, but the car is back on track. I want to give you a quick thought. Could this be the longest, fastest Le Mans ever? 1972 is the record they've been trying to beat. They got quite close last year. We need to get the record books out because I think they could go the greatest distance of any 24-hour race ever.
I think that's entirely possible, and one of the things that we've seen over the course of the years, everybody thought that great average speed, Dorsey, that was run by the Porsche 917 many, many years ago on the track without the chicanes, with everything else, was going to stand forever, and they've been getting closer and closer to that mark as well.
We talk about all the time whether be lucky than good. Well, what had happened just there with Audi if they weren't at the pit out end? What if they were down on Pescarolo's end and the headlights didn't come on? They would have had to go all the way back. They didn't have to. Audi is getting lucky.
Without a doubt, we want to remind you, coming up next will be 3 hours of race coverage with Radio Le Mans providing the audio, and we are sure you're going to enjoy that. We will be back to take you through the rest of the event at 5 a.m. Eastern time, so make sure and join us then. But we suggest you stay and enjoy the great fun coverage from Radio Le Mans. We will be back, and we hope you will join us and stay with us right through the finish. Thank you so much for being a part of the 74th running of the Michelin 24 du Mans. We hope you've enjoyed it thus far, and it's going to be getting more and more interesting as we close in on the final. So do stay with us right through to the end.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome along. It's just after 8 o'clock here in France. Welcome to Radio Le Mans and Speed's overnight coverage. Tom Christensen out again after a very quick pit stop. And his teammate, Marco Werner, in the number 8 car continues to lead and has just got the hammer down in the first section of the track. Joe Bradley is down at Audi and can update us on Tom Christensen's pit stop. Joe?
We've just seen another clockwork pit stop from the Yost Audi team. The number 7 Audi came in. Tom Christensen stayed at the wheel of the car. A very tired-looking Alan McNish observed the pit stop from just in front of the car, taking everything in. Alan obviously just getting back from his rest period. Just to bring you up to date further down the pit lane, the number 87 GT2 Ferrari, the wheel is now off and that car's being readied and will rejoin the race very soon. Now, we've just seen pictures there of Christensen slowing considerably and being passed by a Lamborghini. Now, I know it's part of the same group, but that's not right. So we need to keep a look out for the number 7 car. You're listening to Radio Le Mans on 91.2 FM, brought to you in association with Evo Magazine, Race Tune for 2006. I'm John Hindorf. Alongside me in our little glass house on the top of the tribune overlooking the pit lane is Paul Truswell and assistant editor of Daily Sports Car Magazine, Graham Good, dailysportscar.com, rather should I say, is Graham Goodwin. The voice that you've just heard in the pit lane is Joe Bradley and also Graham Tyler. So those are the voices you'll hear within the next 3 hours here on Speed and Radio Le Mans together. Let's bring Paul Truswell in right now. Paul?
Yeah, just to say that pit stop that we just saw from Marco Werner when he got in the car and was stopped at the end of the pit lane for the lights to be corrected, I reckon that cost him 3 minutes. Now, 3 minutes is not quite a lap, and he had an advantage which was just over 2 laps. So we're going to need to monitor that gap, because we heard from Frank Bieler that car is being driven absolutely flat out, and I can promise you that so is Frank Montagny in the number 17 Pescarolo. He's just dipped into the 336s. He's now at the 337s. The laps going up and down as he hits the traffic. It's a real battle on at the moment, John.
Yes, and back down into the pit lane at the other end, Graham Tyler. Graham?
Thank you, John. Yeah, we just had a stop for the number 81 Panos Esperanti. This is the LNT automotive car. The works Scott's car, the Multimatic, entered car number 77. Unfortunately, had to withdraw. Well, was forced to withdraw earlier on in the race when it had a fuel pickup problem out on the circuit, and Gunnar Jeanette was unable to slosh any fuel from the main tank back into the reserve tank to get it home, so stranded out on circuit. No such problem for the LNT car, going strongly. Lawrence Tomlinson at the wheel.
Now, Tom Christensen has struggled back around to the pit lane. Alan McNish is being readied down there. If you're just joining us on Speed, welcome along to the morning hours with Radio Le Mans, 91.2 FM around the circuit, www.radiolemans.com. And of course, in Europe, we're on the Sky Channel satellite 0157. Joe Bradley is camping down at Yost. The Scotsman getting ready for a very slow Tom Christensen coming into the pit lane from third position. This car's already had some injector problems earlier on in the race, had some changed, and it's barely crawling down. In fact, I think he's cut the engine, Joe, as he comes to you.
Yes, he has indeed, and just a few seconds ago I witnessed this car being serviced by a replenishable fuel. It had oil. Everything seemed to be clockwork. Tom took it back out on track, and now it's coming back in. It's being put onto its trolleys, and it's now being wheeled back into the pit garage. A driver change is going on while they're doing that. Tom and Alan McNish, Tom Christensen and Alan McNish standing on top of the car. Tom Christensen now putting Alan McNish into his seating position and strapping him in. It looks to me as though it is definitely an engine problem with this car. The rear bodywork has come off, and there is hurried work going on. We've got Reinhold Joost walking across from the pit wall, so Reinhold Joost, team principal, is concerned as to what exactly the problem is. Now, there's a piece of equipment on, I think it's a turbo. It's a turbocharger. There is a turbo problem on this car. A brand new turbocharger is being put on the side pod of the car. They're pouring cold water onto the errant turbocharger in an effort to cool it down, to at least allow people to actually take the turbo off. So a lot of work. This car has really had the brunt of Audi's problems. It's
George, just while you're there,
yeah,
excuse me, we've got the GT1 leader in. Henri Pescarolo, very interested spectator, because of course his car is the one directly ahead of Montagny, and he's also praying, I suppose, and waiting for some problem to befall the number 8 Audi, which is still leading. Graham Tyler is watching the GT1 leader, and there's more drama, Graham, as the Aston's pushed back into its pit box.
The GT1 leader not pushed into his pit box. He's been and gone. Stefan Sarazan was who brought the car in and handed over to Stefan Ortelli, so all well there. If there's another Aston being pushed into the pit, then I need to go and find which one it is.
It's the 009 car.
Fine, we'll go and find that one. No, the 009 car is definitely not in its pit. I can promise you that now, because I'm standing outside that pit. The number 63 Corvette is expected, as is the Zytek Motorsports car, the Danish-driven prototype, which is in the next pit. So that's going to make life interesting, as the two will attempt to come down pit lane close together. Indeed, they come down nose and tail, and it's the Zytek which looks to be ahead of the Corvette. So that's going to be a very tight squeeze when the number 2 car gets in. In fact, the Corvette being allowed to pass by that's really heads-up driving by the guy in the number 2, and I'm wondering if that might have been, no, it's not John Nielsen, it's Philip Anderson who was in that car. So good work for him, and we'll get Casper Elgar jumping in, as meanwhile the number 63 Corvette work can now proceed, and does so. The fuel going in first as ever, no driver change evident, and it's Johnny O'Connell at the wheel, the man from Flowery Branch, Georgia. That fuel is now completed. Up goes the car, and we've got wheels going on front and rear. The same job is being done on the prototype right behind them, and it's going to be the Corvette that gets it first. You can hear that for yourselves, and the Zytek will follow. They're just doing the last rear wheel, and there's getting trouble getting it lined up. There it goes. Hammer jacks on, air jacks down. Press the start button.
And some consternation there, mate. What's he waving at?
Needs a little bit of adjustment on the mirrors, and away he goes.
Thank you, Graham. Graham Tyler down there in the pit lane. You're listening to Radio Le Mans and Speed Channel together. Good Speed TV together. Just after 7 minutes, 8 minutes past 8 on a French morning with the sun coming up over the top of the grandstand. The pit lane still for the moment, and nicely so for our pit lane crew, bathed in shadow rather than sunshine, because it does get very hot down there. And in the Audi pit, we'll go back to Joe Bradley in a second, as that car is still being worked on. 91.2 FM, this is Radio Le Mans. Here's a quick word from Paul Truswell.
Yeah, just to say that Marco Werner's really got the hammer down now with the number 8 Audi, a 3:32.856 on his last lap. That's just 0.2 of a second slower than his best altogether. So Marco going as quickly as that Audi will possibly take him.
Well, the number 7 Audi is static, while the number 8 plods round at an incredible pace. The number 7 Audi is still static in the pits. This turbocharger change is taking a little bit time, and it doesn't matter how efficient the Yost team is. This is the sort of job which is a little bit tricky. The extremely hot 1,000-degree temperatures of what a turbocharger can reach is now having to be manhandled off from the engine bay and replaced with a new unit. Alan McNish sits very patiently in the car. He's taking on a little bit more fluid while he's having to wait. Tom Christensen is hanging around to see how the job's proceeding, and hopefully we may even get a chance to talk to Tom in a moment or two. Let's just see if I can step forward and talk to Tom. Tom? Tom was in the car when the problem occurred. Tom, I take it it's a turbocharger that failed.
Yeah, they're changing just sudden loss of power 3 corners after the pit stop, and they very fast found out what it was, so they're changing the turbocharger.
Up until the pit stop, Tom, no problems whatsoever?
What, you mean in the race or what?
No, I mean with the turbocharger, there was no indication that the turbocharger was failing up to that pit stop.
No, as I said, it just failed after 3 corners after the pit stop, suddenly, yeah.
Prior to that, great pace from the car?
Yeah, apart from that, the car has been running very, very good between obviously the issues we have had, and obviously you don't win Le Mans when you park the car for the night, do you?
No, exactly, and if anyone knows how to win Le Mans, it's Tom Christensen.
Who some would call Mr. Le Mans. He's won every one this century, but it's not been his year so far. But in 3rd place, 10 laps off the leader. That's half an hour of time to be lost in the pits if he's got to be somewhere. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this car, it's kind of off the pace of the others, or not off the pace of the others, but it's dropped back because of the problems that Tom was kind of hinting at there that the car had during the night. And I worked out a little while ago how fast it would have to go, and it would never have caught up unless the Pescarolo ahead of it would have had a problem. It would have to have gone 11 seconds a lap faster in order to have caught up with the Pescarolo. And behind it, there isn't really another LMP1 car. So, yes, it might sort of fall off the overall podium, and then we'd have an Aston Martin on the podium. What about that?
Or a Corvette.
Or a Corvette, of course, because they're still 2.5 minutes apart, those two.
Fantastic race. We haven't talked about that too much, but the Gavin GT1, we were hoping for some kind of Laguna Seca ALMS type 24-wheel train in that class, as the Pescarolo continues to circulate in 2nd place. It's Frank Montagni, the Super Aguri driver, who is behind the wheel. We still reckon that he's the first active F1 driver at Le Mans since '85, and Bertrand Gachot. If you know better, email us. That'll start another flurry of emails. But the GT1 battle, Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com joining us in the booth. We were hoping for 4 or maybe 5 with the Semco Celine, and maybe 6 with one of the battling private air cars. But what we've had is 2 cars who have run relatively faultlessly and have almost always been together on the timing screen. A couple of times when prototype cars have been coming back up, they've been separated. But there's really nothing to choose between these 2 cars, and this is a proper old-fashioned Le Mans dogfight in the production-based category.
Yeah, for a long time, John, we've seen these cars running 10, 15 seconds apart, and by a long time we mean for hour after hour after hour early in the race. But at the moment they're still on the same lap. Looks like staying that way, and it really is a case of who's going to cough first in this LMP1, LMP2, and guess what, in GT2 as well. Battles in every class and problems in every class this morning as well.
Let's go down into the pit lane where we have got the 39 Lola AER, that's the Chamberlain Synergy car, coming back out onto the pit lane, and Joe Bradley can tell us about one of the cars we've been following for the last little while, which is the Scuderia Ecos. Had a problem with a recalcitrant wheel, Joe Bradley, and they had to take some fairly extreme measures on it.
Extreme measures of which I've never seen before. I don't think I've never seen anyone take a hammer and chisel to an alloy wheel of a Ferrari 430. I've never seen anyone take a chisel to an alloy wheel of anything, to be honest, not even a car. But what we had was this car coming in third place in the GT2 category and becoming absolutely bogged down in its pit because the left-hand rear wheel just would not come off of its hub. It appeared that the pegs had gotten broken off, and that's the great sound of that number 87 Ferrari rejoining this race after losing. I think that could have been a good 2 hours. Paul will be able to tell us better than I could.
Oh, hang on a second, Joe. We've got a car that is in flames out on the far side of the circuit. Oh, is that earlier on or is that live? No, I think that's live. That is the WR. Appreciate the wheel, and this could well bring out a safety car. That car is well alight. The marshal's already there with the foam. Now that is at the second chicane, second chicane, I was right the first time, just on the exit of it, 3/4 of the way down the Mouzan Straight, and it's well off the racing line. So drama here at 14.5 minutes past 8. Radio Le Mans 91.2 FM. The car now shrouded in extinguishment. I can see a man in racing overalls pacing around, and I can see, in fact, only his boots. That is, appreciate the driver. There he is. So no worries about his safety, thank goodness. Well, we only saw the end of that conflagration.
Yeah, I suspect the safety car decision will be made based on whether the thing actually dropped anything onto the circuit before it caught fire. I mean, if it was dropping oil or something and then that ignited, then they'll bring the safety car out. But if it's just been parked and caught fire or whatever happened to it. But WRs always draw attention to themselves, don't they? They always do something.
I'm sure not intentionally setting the car alight just to get on TV in America, really.
And the Lamborghini has just come down the main straight completely sideways. That's drawing attention to itself as well.
That's in a better way. We like that.
Yeah, Lamborghinis going sideways are always spectacular. He'll wait for a gap in the traffic and then he'll point it back in the right direction.
Now there's still a bit of flame as the 17 Pescarolo continues. The Lamborghini slightly overdone it. We've seemed to have a flurry of pit activity, so maybe the team's expecting some kind of safety car. In comes the 17 car with Montagny at the wheel from second place. That's Graham Tyler's end of the pit. Graham?
Yeah, I was up with the Aston Martins a moment ago, so not able to get straight back down there, but I will via the Barassi Epsilon pit because they are on the go as well. We've got fuel going into the 7 car, and last time through it was Montagny who stayed at the wheel, and it doesn't look as though there's a driver change going on there either, John.
No, absolutely not. It's just going to be fuel, and we should say that's petrol this year, of course. Gasoline for our American viewers.
And off he goes.
Very unfussed. Very, very unfussed.
And on the subject of fuel, the Pescarolo's 12 laps per stint pretty reliably throughout the race, and that was another 12 lap stint for Frank Montagny, despite the very quick pace that he was running. I mean, he was putting in as quick a laps there as he was right at the beginning of the race.
That's Paul Truswell. This is Radio Le Mans.
GM Chevy Corvettes, racing memories on Radio Le Mans. Chevy Corvette, America's sports car. Then, now, always. Ron Fellows.
Summer job I had working for a local natural gas company. There was a young guy who was a full-time there and single. He had a Corvette. I think it was the early 70s model, and he let me drive it. When I got in the seat, I remember being disappointed. I said, "Dude, this thing's an automatic. What are you doing?" And then I was really fascinated with. I got fascinated sort of in the when I started racing in the late 70s, watching Trans Am, and at the time, this is probably early 80s, Epi Wietzes drove, he won a Trans Am championship, I think 82, something like that. He drove a Corvette, and it was prepped by Brad Francis, and that thing just had, I mean, it was just worth standing by the edge of the racetrack at turn 10 at Mossport and listening to the engine. I mean, it just sang. It was just unreal. I get goosebumps just thinking about it now. And those are my first couple of memories of certainly of Corvette, and one in production and one on the track.
Radio Le Mans with GM Chevy Corvette Racing Memories. Chevy Corvette, America's sports car. Then, now, always.
Welcome back to Radio Le Mans. We'll take a break for our speed listeners and viewers in just a moment. As you can see, Alan McNish has brought the number 7 Audi R10 TDI back onto the circuit after a turbocharger change, which Paul Trustwell took how long exactly?
Well, it took 14 minutes to change the turbo, but he also lost about 2 minutes on his slow lap back to the pit. So altogether, 16 minutes lost.